Start the meeting. Today is October 2nd. Welcome, everyone. We've got a pretty fun, exciting agenda today. So we have a lovely presentation for our LDDA. So we're going to hear a little bit about that today. We're going to talk a little bit more about the capital finance study session, just a little discussion around that. The Geneva Village discussion as well, and then we'll wrap with the Next Gen Advisory Board Engagement Outreach Survey. You're familiar with this one from last year, we'll be doing it. So it's just going to be kind of an introduction, and we'll won't spend too much time on it, but just kind of get acquainted with what we want to do with it moving forward. So like I said, not action packed, but a lot of fun action there. And with that, I didn't want to miss the opportunity to see Pam is over here for any public comment. We have 3 minutes if you'd like.
I'll just sit. It's more of a recording. My name is Pam Chepburn. I've lived a block or two from here. I wanted to mention again that it'd be nice if the packet or any documents were posted for the public before the meetings. I know that there's a practice to not do that, but I think the boards can choose to do that, and I think that's a good thing to do. You're actually talking about community engagement, and then not posting the documents to me is in direct contradiction to that motive. So yeah, share information. It's always better. My civics part of this is that it's not this board's job to reach out to the community. The city is contemplating hiring 2 more community engagement folks, and you are a biased group. I don't, it's not an insult, it's the truth. And you can only reach out to certain people. You cannot create a statistically significant sample of the range of people your age or this age group in the city. And so you can't do it. And I've seen other next gen boards try to talk about that, but it isn't your job. It's the staff's job, and it needs to be done by them. And you're here as public servants to consider evidence and data that's brought to you, and then decide whether that evidence is adequate. If it's not, ask for more until you get enough to make decisions on behalf of the city at large for X number of years in the future. You don't have that for Geneva Village. The city doesn't have it. They've never done it. I want to make the point that we don't have a budget projection for 30 or 40 years. So we don't know whether the city will be solvent in 15, 20 years. And we also don't have a list of assets. And to sell these 2 properties, Geneva Village and this, I think would be criminal. The city doesn't need money now. The city doesn't need to sell these properties now. In fact, it urgently should be keeping them now as an asset for the future, because the city is considering getting in debt to do some major work. So some cities in their charter require a vote of the people. I mean, it's that important before city property is sold. The city already lost the 72 parcels of public housing property, and now it's transferred to the private sector. We need these 2 properties plus the 2 adjacent to stay publicly owned, so that in the future, when the public may need that, it is available. We don't need it now. So please consider that and ask for that data. You've got to have that data. Be better leaders. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into our exciting presentation today. Show is yours.
Okay, cool. I'm Danny Westblade. I work for the Littleton DDA. The DDA is really myself and Jenny Starkey, who's our executive director. I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight. She usually does these presentations, so I apologize for this. This is kind of my first time doing one of these, but we do a lot of these for boards. We've done them for the Arts and Culture Board. We've done them for we present in front of City Council a lot, and we just want to make sure that your board understands who we are and what we're doing. Yeah, next. Okay, so if you don't know what a DDA is, a DDA stands for Downtown Development Authority. We help make downtowns better, stronger, and more welcoming. We bring together businesses, property owners in the city. And we focus on improving places, supporting businesses, and creating experiences people want to come back for. The Littleton DDA was formed in 2023 after it was voted into place, and we are guided by a board of directors, which is chosen by city council every year. All of those members of our board have to live, work, or own property downtown. And again, our main job is to carry out a plan of development, which is a 30-year plan of development, essentially our roadmap for making downtown thrive, and that was created before we were even formed. And you know, everything we do goes back to that plan of development. Next slide. Sorry, this is kind of a little bit hard to see, but I just want to sort of break down our map and where what the DDA actually comprises. So everyone thinks of downtown as the downtown core, really Main Street and sort of those surrounding streets. But we also cover to the south all of ACC, the entire campus. To the west, we go all the way out to the Dish Network building, and then to the Platte. We go all the way down just before Hudson Gardens, so we don't include Hudson Gardens. Up north, we include sort of that, I think it's called Riverside North, where there's like the Panda Express, those a few shops up there. And then we do include all of the, you know, city buildings, Geneva, et cetera. And then to the east, we just sort of have a very kind of random hodgepodge that essentially goes to Crocker. So we don't go all the way to here. And yeah, we have a lot of really important buildings in our district. You know, we have and we're dealing like with some really interesting things like Little Creek. We have Geneva Village. We have all of the city and county buildings. We have Mall Arts. We have ACC. So it's just a really cool and complex district that we have. By the numbers, we have roughly 5,600 employees, almost 800 residential units, and about 400, a little over 400 businesses. We did pull some data that told us that about 60% of the population within a mile are highly educated. 35% within 2 miles are between the ages of 20 and 45 years old. And 32% of the population within 5 miles are homeowners. So we have a really diverse, you know, group of people that live very close to downtown. A lot of people wonder how the DDA is funded. We're funded essentially 3 ways, with 1 and 2 sort of being, you know, what we've always been funded by, and 3 sort of is something we're growing. So we're funded by TIF, by tax increment financing. So again, when downtown property taxes grow, part of that growth gets reinvested back into our district. We have mill levy up to 3 mills, small property tax that funds staff, safety, and marketing. And then something that we're growing, we started last year, are our grants and sponsorship. Obviously, everyone knows what that means, but we are we've started to see success in getting some grants, especially from the city through the arts and culture program, and sponsorships for some of the programming that we started up last year in 2024.
You have a top sponsor.
We have a top sponsor. We've had 2 big sort of programs that we've solicited sponsorship for. And we one was the holiday trees, which I'll talk about, and one was the block party, which this past summer was our first year bringing the block party back. And our top sponsor was a bank that's moving into downtown. So they sponsored kind of, you know, we had a big fireworks show. I don't know if anyone was able to attend the block party, but they sponsored the fireworks, which was really good.
Cool, that's awesome.
Okay, so our plan of development is basically broken down into 5 priorities. And I wanted to go through these in a little more detail. And again, the plan of development is what we use, it's our guiding light. It's what we use to make all of our decisions. You know, whenever we're contemplating something, we go back to the plan of development to make sure that that was part of it. The first priority is beautiful and welcoming, so making downtown a place you want to hang out. This priority includes enhancing the gateways to downtown. It includes considering Vega Park and what we can do to maybe, you know, make it bigger, make it better, and make it more activated. It includes flowers and landscaping. Right now, the city is in charge, the public works team at the city is in charge of all of the flower and the flower program downtown. But next year, we're looking to expand on that program. And then we also, in 2025, created a public art committee, and we're really excited about that. Some board members from our board put together that public art committee, and we've presented to the Arts and Culture Board, and we've received some grants, and we're really excited to broaden how people come to downtown and see public art, and we're hoping to start with a sculpture program. The second priority is well-connected, easy to get here no matter how you travel. This includes enhancing connections, making streets that are multimodal, making sure they're safe, and also making sure that that people can get downtown in a variety of ways from a variety of improved parking experience, more options, better info, so it's less stressful. This is a popular topic. We are always working to form and build our relationships with ACC, with RTD, with the city. We're working to create a parking plan. There will likely be a parking study that comes out next year in collaboration with the city. And we are always considering long-term parking and management strategies. So it's just something that's always top priority. Clean and safe. I will dig into this a little bit more, but feels good to be here day or night. Again, addressing security concerns and ensuring a safer experience. And I'll talk a little bit about clean and maintenance, and as well as snow removal. And then finally, business friendly and vibrant. Shops and restaurants succeed, which keeps downtowns lively. So we're working on, we want to make sure we've provided consolidated marketing for all of the businesses downtown, and we're promoting them. We want to make sure we're encouraging investment and development downtown, you know, keeping an eye on vacancies and making sure that we're finding the right businesses to fill those vacancies, providing support services to businesses downtown, and making sure that everyone in the district is informed. Okay. So this is our clean and safe impact. We like to highlight this because this is one of the first things we focused on when we got started. We do manage a full-time cleaning and maintenance schedule as well as a snow removal, you know, through the months of essentially November through April, or who knows how long. This has been a really successful program for us. All of the businesses love it. It's right now only in the core. We focus on the core. We focus on sidewalk and street sweeping, pressure washing, graffiti removal, snow removal and ice mitigation, and then we do also go down to Little's Creek and clean that up. As you can see, this is 24 data, but this is like the number of the amount of times a particular task was logged by the company that we use. So they swept 370 times. They removed snow 982 times. Again, that's not 982 snowfalls, but the individuals each coming to remove snow. We picked up trash, pressure wash, and our businesses are really grateful for this program and see a really big benefit in this program. As far as business friendly and vibrant, we try and market all of the businesses downtown, and we really try and stay active on social media. We have a website and branding you might have seen We have banners that hang on the Sternbergs, on Main Street and on Alamo. And then we've been able to launch some really cool programs. We launched the holiday trees last year, for the first time, and we'll be bringing them back this year. So I don't know if anyone saw them, but we essentially put 34 lit trees on Main Street during the holidays. And we were able to replant all of those trees within city limits after the program ended. Just our small way of pretending to bring trees back. And people really enjoyed it, and we did offer sponsorship opportunities for that, and it was just a really successful and exciting program. And then our Sparkle and Stroll marketing campaign was the other thing we launched at the holidays, which was a shopping campaign for all the businesses downtown to participate in, and literally we provided all of the marketing and the materials, and people just had to get stamps. They could turn those stamps in for prizes, and it was just a great way to get more people shopping downtown. Again, a lot of holiday activation. We bring Santa and carolers downtown every weekend. We engage some influencers. We have newsletters that go out twice a month. So we have a community newsletter that goes out to anyone who's interested in knowing what happens downtown. And then we have a business focused newsletter that's really tailored to the businesses that are downtown, so that they know what's happening. Are there street closures? Are there things that they need to sign up for, like the Goblin Give Out, like if you want to, give out candy to the trick-or-treaters. So we're really trying to keep the businesses downtown informed. And then we try and post like a blog once a month to highlight a business or an event that's coming up. And then as needed, media and PR. But we do have, our website stays pretty busy, and then we have a lot of subscribers, especially in the community. I would encourage you guys to sign up if you haven't already, just so you're in the loop with things that are happening downtown.
You had said the
Yeah.
social media launch.
Yes.
Do you know roughly like how many new users or signups or follows you got from that? Is it an increase from previous years, or how's your impact on a digital platform?
Okay, if I understand your question, so that Instagram screenshot,
Yeah.
I think it says 800, I just looked at this today, it says 851 followers. You're asking kind of about followers?
Yep, trying
Okay.
to see what the.
So that was in January, because this slideshow, we kind of do once a year, but that was in January. And today we have about 2,100 followers. And we hired someone to exclusively focus on marketing in summer, or maybe the spring. And so Instagram is picking up. That's our primary social media platform. And the businesses they just really like to collaborate with us, and we like to collaborate with them. And so it's been a really cool, fun thing to watch grow. We have been able to hire some influencers at the holidays to sort of, do things a little bit different than what we would do. But it's been growing, I think, slowly but surely.
Yeah.
2022 followers.
Okay, I don't know what I said, 2,100.
You were close.
I was rounding.
I know doesn't look like you're following me, but whatever.
We should change that. Are you following us?
Yes,
Okay, good.
I'm teasing it for the joke.
Yeah, it's been really, fortunately, I don't work on it, because it wouldn't be as beautiful as it is, but it's a great way for the businesses to promote, and it's fun to watch all of the businesses downtown collaborate with each other on stuff, so it's fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I asked too, because I have seen that, so I was curious from
Okay.
kind of your behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's
What
grown a
you're
lot this
seeing.
year with, especially in hiring someone to focus on it. Yeah, thank you. I kind of talked about this already. Again, the holiday tree program, we had 21 sponsors. We received some grants as well. So we raised about 47,500 between grants and sponsorships for that program. And we are doing it again this year. It will look identical with the 34 trees. And we will be again seeking sponsorship. And then that's just sort of what the Sparkle and Stroll, material looked like. It was really fun because we had 49 businesses participate, and that's the majority of like storefront businesses downtown. So we were excited that everyone wanted to participate. We had about 176 people submit cards, and then we selected 9 winners, and everyone loved it. It was great. And we'll be bringing, we have just started gathering participating businesses, so that will also launch hopefully like a week or 2 before Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, the block party was like a huge event that we put on in collaboration with the Littleton Merchants Association. Our board was really passionate about bringing it back. I think the last year it was done was 2018. And we brought it back, and we had, we go to the next slide? I think we have more data. We had about 14,000 attendees. We had 65 people volunteer. We had 64 vendors come out and, you know, sell stuff. Again, this was our other sponsorship opportunity. We had 28 sponsors, and it was just so fun. We had 4 stages. I don't know, did any of you guys?
It was so fun.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Okay, good. So we had a stage on every block. We have 5 different bands, so many circus acts and crazy stilt walkers, and then we had a fireworks show at the end, which was really awesome. So the feedback we got from that event was, again, really positive. So that will also be coming back next year.
Bobby, you're telling me that you're a stilt walker, so maybe you can.
Oh, perfect.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see. Okay, and this is just sort of how we stay engaged with the community. We have twice a year, we have networking events so that the businesses can come together, connect with one another, collaborate as needed. We have a really good connection with our set officer from the police department. And he comes and checks in quarterly with our board and just sort of provides information and answers questions. Whenever there's a new business coming to downtown, we do meet with the business and provide them with a business resource packet that sort of just gives them a lot of information about how to operate downtown and sort of things to know. And we're really always downtown meeting with the businesses. We do have a monthly public board meeting just like this. We meet on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at ACC. Anyone is welcome to join. And yes, we're always meeting with community partners. We have close connections with the city, especially, you know, the economic development team and the marketing team, city council. City council sits on our board, a member from city council sits on our board, and then, you know, just always staying in the know with grant funding and sponsorship opportunities. And this is moving forward, so I just sort of wanted to put some things out there of like sort of what we're looking at in 2026, and just, you know, let all of you know that we would love for you guys to be engaged however you want to be. Please subscribe to our newsletter so you know what's going on. We are always looking for volunteers for some of our events, and with the public art rolling out, you know, we'll have lots of we'll need lots of help, you know, and yeah, however you guys want to be involved, we're really excited for it.
Awesome. There's a lot of big things coming up.
Yeah.
List right there.
Yes, I mean, our budget is going to the council next week, but we're really excited about some of the stuff that we're launching next year. Do you guys have any questions?
I do. So for the holiday tree program, I think that was a great idea. Does that mean that there's no chance of the trees actually coming back, seeing that it's planning to continue for at least a couple of years?
Next year, so we're bringing it this year, 2025, and we'll probably bring it back in 2026. Because and then we'll probably hold back until we know more about Project Downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, I think last time I was here, we talked about how Project Downtown is gonna be the subject of the study session right after that. So at our study session, we gave guidance to the staff to proceed with Project Downtown and to consider getting, you know, using debt funding to move forward with that.
And hopefully, potentially that will that would involve the planting of trees.
Yeah.
So then maybe tree program wouldn't necessarily need to
And then
continue.
my other question with you working with all the businesses downtown, what do you think is like the main cause for, what are you seeing as the main cause for turnover in businesses? Is it what their product and
That's a good
fitting it,
question.
or like, is it design, like what are you seeing as a theme for like the most successful businesses?
That's a good question. I mean, that's interesting because, promoting a lot of events, there's just like a lot of events happening this month. And I noticed that the Chocolate Therapist is turning 17 and Original Hardware is turning 20. Like, there's a lot of like really long-standing businesses downtown. And I don't actually know, like, it seems very varied why businesses close and why they don't. So I don't feel like I have a good answer for,
Okay.
it's too varied. I haven't seen a theme.
If you were to focus on restaurants, would that change at all, do you think?
I'm trying to think of what restaurants have closed lately.
Well, we lost, was it not the View House, the other one that closed because of the family disagreement.
Right.
And the pizza place was because they were overinvested in a different place.
Okay, see, and that was even before the DDA.
Yeah, and then I know coffee shop is changing because rent got too high.
Hear that, yeah, the mango tree.
That was cup, I think.
That's good, thank you.
So,
It's a good question. I have not figured that out yet.
Part of the reason I ask is because I have an opinion on what that is in different ways that I think there's a design element missing sometimes in a lot of the shops and restaurants, more the restaurants, honestly, than anything. And I think grants going towards like a consult for new businesses moving into downtown Littleton to maybe help them make a better plan for like seating and lighting and whatever they're doing. I think something like that could be really impactful for their businesses and also just getting people to continue coming downtown because of,
The economic development team group has several grants focused on like remodels or like especially exterior stuff, but I mean, we have talked about micro grants before, and so I can certainly like keep that in my back pocket, or we could chat more
or
about.
just like a consultation. I mean, I bet you could get volunteers for it, even like Littleton designers or whatever it may be. I bet you could get volunteers because, I mean, if you look at like Denver Beer Co. compared to Jackass Brewery and like everything they put into making that patio a really welcoming spot, the difference is astounding. How many people are getting in the door.
Feedback's a lot better than sitting in a parking lot.
Yes.
But I think that's an interesting idea too. I mean, I might be out of the loop, but you know, I think when you test things a lot, like I feel like a lot of times people try to be very like kind of secretive because they're a little worried about like, well, my secret sauce is gonna get out, right? And then we'll be absolute failures. For the most part, you know, I think that people in Littleton wanna, you know, be able to like participate in that and like, oh gosh, there's this cool new shop coming in. I want to like
Congratulations.
learn a little bit, test out and get feedback, you know, and I think that would be an interesting thing that you could also take in, you know, what Debbie had said too, like consult and then you know, maybe some actual citizen feedback is participate.
We could do like if anyone watches HGTV like we do, Rock the Block, where they have designers come in, volunteer to come in and like spruce up a restaurant or place. I think, I don't know, Littleton's that type of community. It's
It could
some
be,
fun ideas.
you can lead the charge.
I think that's like just an interesting perspective, because like from, like, yeah, there is like turnover and some businesses not thriving is like naturally part of just like process, but like as a whole, the health of downtown, in my perception, is really like strong right now. It does feel like it's just kind of constantly like vibing. It's just, it's fun in the final Fridays, especially like it's just amazing how like many people can be down there. Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to like keep a pulse check on over time. That's how to ensure individual businesses can kind of capitalize on just the popularity of the area and ensuring like success in that. I love their downtown though.
Because I'm youthful in spirit, not appearance. I think that one of the things we have to figure out to capitalize on is all the people down there playing Pokemon Go. I mean, there are 50 to 100 people playing.
Is that what it,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's what
We
it was.
just haven't monopolized it at all. And it's something to, I mean, it brings people downtown.
I had no idea.
Yeah, no, it's
Crazy.
I haven't played Pokemon Go in a year, but if you get somebody who plays it to show you where the gyms are, which are the kind of places where they gather to do things. I know there's one in the park, is it Vega Park? And I think there's another one on the corner of Prince.
Is that the octopus?
No, it's a virtual
Okay.
thing that you see on your phone and you walk up to. I should probably start playing it again so I can just show you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna need to look into this.
But when there's an event, because they have events,
Yeah.
there are 50, 100 people walking around playing.
You can tell because they're like this.
Yeah, they're staring at me.
My other question is like for the beautification efforts and the gardening and flower efforts and expanding that, what does that look like?
Not sure yet. None of it, right now it's all city. But our board, really wanted us to move forward on especially the gateways. So if you think about like where you enter into downtown, specifically at Bowles and Santa Fe, that like island. Then, we're gonna focus on that. And then, there's some bridges that come into downtown and those are actually being looked at right now for some sort of beautification efforts, as well as like maintenance stuff. And we're a part of that conversation. And then with the flower pots and like the flower program, the city does that, the public works team does that. But I think, our hope is that we can just expand on that and just do more.
Are you pulling inspiration from any places in particular, or is it just kind of?
Well, we hope to be able to work with, we've been in contact with Hudson Gardens.
Okay.
So we're looking to work with like local partners. The trees were sourced and, set up and maintained by Designs by Sundown, which is another local company. And so our board is very, very passionate about us staying local. And so we'll stay local. Botanic Gardens we've also talked to. That's great. We haven't started like actual design yet. We're just sort of in the initial conversations.
Yeah, I was just in Cherry Creek the other day and they just do such a spectacular job with their like oversized pots. They really have a lot of impact.
Our executive director, Jenny, used to work for Cherry Creek North, and so she has so many ideas, and so she's so inspired from her previous work, so I hope it'll be.
I'm glad that's a focus. I think it's important. I think that's awesome.
Can you say more about the public art
Yeah.
program?
Yes, it's in its very early stages, but two members of our board, one who's an artist, have sort of joined forces to start up that committee, and they've done a ton of fact finding, so they've gone to various different schools to sort of understand what's working and what's not. They've visited the Arvada Center for the Arts, they've met with several sculpturists, to try and understand what that might look like. And we're sort of in the early phases of trying to figure out if we can put plinths, which are like the base of this sculpture, in places downtown, and then have like a revolving sculpture program. That's sort of our phase one, and we did get a grant for that from the Arts and Culture Board. And then we're also hoping to create sort of like an interactive map online so that people can sort of see where all of the public art is in our district. The city has a really robust map already, and so hopefully we can pull from that to sort of just make it district specific. So that's sort of where we're starting. You probably online can find the whole presentation that they did, or I can send it to you guys, but, Krista, who's the artist and also on our board, has like some really amazing ideas of ways to make it work affordably, since we don't have a ton of budget for it right now. So we're really excited about what it will become. We just have to make sure we have the budget for it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I left it so vague intentionally. So it's gonna be sculpture based in all likelihood.
To start with. I mean, we also, love murals, and murals are hard downtown because there's a historic overlay, so there's not a ton of places you could put murals, but Krista has some creative ways to do other sort of maybe murals on the ground, like art on places that aren't. So we're still in early phases, but should be really exciting as we continue to build it.
They used to do two things I feel like have kind of died off, where they would have the I think they partnered with schools to do the pumpkin sculptures. And I know it's completely different than like the sculptures you're talking about, but I figure it would tie into the same program, where they were doing the pumpkin sculptures, and then they used to do something where they would knit. You remember they like
I don't remember that.
knit all the light poles
pumpkin
and
poles.
They still do the pumpkin.
everything?
I feel like
Pumpkin
that-
poles, the Littleton Merchants Association, will be doing the pumpkin poles the week before Halloween. So those will
Okay.
be back. They're just 1 week during October because those pumpkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But those will be back. I don't know about the.
There were like a few years where they like crocheted all of the lamp posts and everything
I
downtown.
think that was like a online thing where you would
Maybe.
knit like trees and stuff to raise money for something. I don't remember exactly.
It was really fun.
I mean, there's so many things we can do downtown.
Yeah. Okay, one more question.
Sure.
When you're focusing on the North Gate and Geneva Village, it's a hot topic right now. With the way you're viewing downtown Littleton, what do you think would be the best use of that space, or like what ways could it be used to benefit the main corridor and downtown Littleton in general?
That's a good question. You know, right now, we got the initial, maybe you guys got this too, like the initial report from the ULI TAP.
We just got the final report last week. so-
Okay, yeah, and we haven't had that yet. And I think right now, we're sort of just absorbing all the information. I don't think that our board really has take on it yet. I think we're sort of waiting for that final report to understand what the city sort of took away from that research. And I don't know that even us as a staff we haven't really given it a ton of thought yet, because we knew that the city was, you know, investing in that ULI TAP.
Yeah, I think that the ULI TAP is is one thing to consider, and I don't think that it, I mean, it starts the discussion, but doesn't end the discussion. And based on me and my colleagues' ability to make decisions quickly, I don't think we're gonna kind of come up with a plan particularly quickly. What to do. And I think the key thing out of the app that I got out of it was, one of the uses of the land is housing. The other use of the land is a public gathering space. And what I learned from the presentation at the ULI TAP is, you know, if we want the housing to be affordable, we have to figure out a way to subsidize it. So, unless we do just like the 5% that we are. And so that's why we're having conversations around, you know, how do we use the asset to subsidize? That's where the conversation around selling the land is coming from. How would you get the resources to subsidize affordable housing? Because that was one of the original points of Geneva Village. But we don't, at least those are the kind of the beginnings of the conversation. Weren't you one of the, I mean, what did you tell them? You don't have, I mean, that's. you don't have to.
I'm happy to share. I think that we are missing out on a ton of money by not having any place for tourism, so I think, having like a boutique hotel situation made a lot of sense, and it could be bungalow style where you preserve the architecture. Like, and having, basically having it based out of the main lodge. And
Yeah, they made that recommendation, turn the lodge.
keeping it small, and I think the amount of funds you get from tourism is enormous. The tax,
The schools we have around here and like there's like so many locations for wedding venues, like at Hudson Gardens and I know Design by Sundown has events and Breckenridge Brewery does too. And then you have the seminary school, Arapahoe Community College that, you know, people want to come in for those graduations and we don't have any place to offer them.
and then I think combining that, I like the idea of combining it with kind of a vertical garden space and community gardens and connecting it to the restaurants. So you're creating an ecosystem where I think right now, organic, local is a huge thing. And there's an opportunity for Littleton to be a leader and say, hey, we're starting this program where we have this here, restaurants are purchasing, we're doing this in the community, we're working locally. Like Working Class just bought Grow and Gather over across from Swedish. And they're growing, and I think just that like vertical garden vibe. I think there's several things you could do, and I think preserving some of the structures that are there and making it a community space with that boutique hotel element could be hit so many buttons. So that was my recommendation.
What's your email?
I know. So you guys can reach out to me through info @downtownlittleton.org. Yeah, if you guys have any questions.
I'll send you the report.
Okay, thanks. I'll share it with Jenny. I'm guessing,
You probably have .com, is it .com?
Work.
I'm guessing it will come back to our board for October. It's usually on the board meeting, but I haven't seen it yet. There has been talk about boutique hotels and like that, so.
So many options.
many options.
Any other questions, comments?
Similar on the other big initiative, like, how are you guys thinking, the DDA, about like partnering and kind of what's your role with Project Downtown as that kind of moves forward?
Yeah, so Project Downtown technically is a city project, but but all of the aspects of Project Downtown are within our plan of development. So it was always like sort of intertwined into our plan of development. But we won't be the, project managers or anything, but the city comes to our board meetings, presents on Project Downtown quite a bit, and our board weighs in on stuff quite a bit. We participate in all of the stakeholder meetings. Our board does. We try and offer our board's opinion on things as much as we can. We do play a role. It's just not our project, but it will obviously have a huge impact. It's very.
Are there
very
any
excited.
pain points in that collaboration or stuff? Cause my only thought, and happy it feels like that so far, is like, I would want you guys to be involved in that stuff ongoing and everything, so.
Yes, we're super involved. We have a great relationship with the city. Jenny was at the meeting in September and voiced the DDA's support of Project Downtown. It sounds like you guys will be talking about it more at this meeting, but we're really excited for it, and we think it's gonna be a good. It's gonna be great for downtown, a great investment.
Okay, thank you for your time tonight and presenting.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Please reach out if you guys have any questions or comments, and you wanna chat. We're always downtown.
Yeah, we got a lot more downtown talk coming.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you guys have a great agenda.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
So
you very
thank you
much.
so
Thanks.
much.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
All right, so we'll move forward then. capital finance study session. I think, so where we left, September's meeting was kind of starting to talk a little bit about, where do we want, our next focus to be for this quarter and then some. And so Bobby, I know you had kind of outlined some that we should review in terms of, different conversations that are happening. So kind of let you lead the charge on that one for, want to give us a summary, and then we can have that discussion on, watching that video. I keep looking over here like we have.
Other
Not that you guys are
we really condensed over here. Yeah, I think that session was a follow-up from the last session, especially related to Project Downtown, because there's no Project Downtown basically without the right funding. So that capital finance study session was the first kind of main dialogue, or at least most recent main dialogue with council on the debt service options that the city can take on in order to fund things like Project Downtown, as well as other major projects that need to be taken on. And it seems like from watching video, looking over the presentations and stuff, and council's dialogue after that, there is generally consensus on moving forward with a mix of those options, both the COPs, which are kind of more of the shorter term option, as well as geo bonds over time. And yeah, I don't know, I have personal thoughts on those things. I'm pretty aligned with a lot of the council dialogue on generally moving forward with this stuff though. But I don't want to overshare opinions unless other people have dialogues and stuff there too, or ideas or questions or other things like that.
Sort of the summary there. Yeah, that was kind of my take of it too, is that, it's as most things, right? There's a lot of opportunities to proceed forward, and it seems like it would kind of be halting if we didn't look at, a magnitude of options, right? Instead of just one. So, that was kind of my take on when I watched it in the wee hours of the morning. And just kind of that seemed like I walked away saying like, yeah, it felt like, there was good dialogue there. It felt like there's some agreement on like action needs to be taken. And we need to kind of figure out, how can we piece it together a little bit like a puzzle, right? Because if we just say one way, then it kind of floats all boats.
Yeah. I don't have a lot. Doesn't feel like the highest stakes area to me at the moment in terms of us to like provide recommendations and stuff on, but just because we agree with council doesn't mean that things on paper saying that isn't fleshing out kind of some of the ideas and gen considerations on there isn't still a valuable thing to do. So I'll leave that up to the rest of the board and dialogue and stuff on whether that's actually something we'd want to pursue. But I think what other thoughts are down there? Yeah, the points that resonated with me a lot is that like generally we are kind of behind on some of these major projects, and it is a little risky and intimidating at times to take on a debt plan without having everything like perfectly mapped out, but like not doing anything. It's not really much of a sustainable option either. So I'm happy with the kind of general consensus to move forward with a lot of these things, while also, Robert, I think you were championing that a lot too, of like trying to map this out a bit more fully for the future as well, so that we kind of have a master plan with the debt we take on and continue to pay off and stuff over time. But in terms of things like Project Downtown, I think it means that generally things are going to keep moving forward in that vein. We could continue to also talk about or provide insight based on our presentation we heard from last month and stuff about ideas or things we support in that vein too, or how we'd like to be involved in planning, or how we think cities should operate on that stuff moving forward, or anything like that.
Yeah, and I thought the study session was kind of like, it's a good piece to marry with our, potential intent of, giving some advisement to the Project Downtown, because then that's a critical point that we can say, hey, like, as the next gen, this is kind of what we're seeing, all of how these things could be impactful, and kind of give our lens of it. So while, it was like very much a little bit like, you know, maybe not like a eureka moment, but, you know, walk away with like, okay, yeah, like there's, you know, some project management that we want here before we move forward. And it makes me think a little bit about the town that I grew up in, you know, had this great idea for what we made like a big shopping center. It's gonna be cool, we're gonna have like a bell tower and all these things, and they built it. And, you know, this was 20 some odd years ago, and you can drive to it and turn around. And that's all we ever did, you know, and so that's where like, I feel like that kind of like passion around like sharing the voice and, you know, as a, you know, next gen advisory board, like think about like the things that we talk about now are the things that will impact us when it's done. And, you know, like I've said 100 times, you know, we're no longer here, right? And so that's right. Something like this is kind of fun for us to weigh in on. So I'm really just echoing everything that has already been said, but I think it's worth the consideration of, as we start to form maybe some sort of advisory force that council, looking again at that capital finance and saying, you know, we really agree with like this point that was made, or we disagree. You know, but I think that's something which is provides, we're giving that holistic review. Looked at all options, not just move forward, spend the money, you know, go in debt, we'll be fine, but really say like, we should do this thoughtfully and carefully. Just like you're buying a car, right?
I agree. I think I don't have enough experience to say what's the better way of funding those things.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of opinions on what should take precedence and where money maybe doesn't need to be spent and where it's gonna add the most value to Littleton. And I think as the next, like, I think that is kind of what we're here for. I totally agree with you, is seeing how in the future it will or won't be used to benefit the city.
Do you feel comfortable sharing like where you felt something, or money is maybe being put that is not, you know, a priority? Its placement?
Yeah.
You don't have to share it if you want, but I'm just giving you.
No, yeah, I totally feel comfortable. I think, I watched the video while I was working, so I need to think of, and I also went to like some of the other, I've gone to a few of the meetings for Project Downtown. So I'm trying to make sure I'm thinking of the most updated version, but I know some of these discussions are like having just kind of sitting spaces,
Hmm.
kind of randomly placed for, yeah, to me, I don't think those get used by citizens that often. I think true patios for restaurants makes more sense than like a general sitting area downtown. I think having them more connected to a purpose and a place is a lot more beneficial. Otherwise, I generally see those places being used by people who are loitering or doing something not so great. Not often actually used by like families having a picnic outside of a restaurant.
I do feel like when those sitting areas are used, just like thinking of like in Inglewood, they have like the little water park and outside of Union Station, you know, for like kids to run through and stuff. Where like if it's around a purpose, it makes sense, but if it's just
Just to say there's space for people, I think that's a waste of space.
I will say those water features are a parent's nightmare if you have a toddler. I'm in support of that, but so I think that's an interesting idea, but I also really like the idea of having a place to like kind of just like park it for a little bit. But I think for me, like, I think of when I'm walking on the street downtown and, you know, like I'm bumping up next to your meal. And, you know, I'm like, well, are you annoyed by my presence when I'm walking there? Like, is it taking away from your meal? You know, and also just like, I'm also thinking too, like, what a fun place to like sit and have a conversation. You know, but again, right, I don't think either is right or wrong, but it's just, it depends how you're looking at like, how is that space gonna be used? Like, maybe the restaurant, you know, like, has a takeaway option. You can just like put your, you know, lunch bag there or whatever. Instead of it being kind of like a gated area of, you have to walk around it and all that stuff. I don't know, that's why I think it's interesting, but my vote is no water features. Well, like, I know it's a temporary problem for me, but I don't want that.
Another thing, a lot of talk about bike lanes. I think being able to bike to downtown Littleton's important, through downtown Littleton,
Yeah,
not so important. I think the point is getting there. It's not, you don't have to be able to bike right down Main Street. You need to be able to bike to Main Street. So
And
like
if there's
use
other
the
ways to
wayside
get around
streets.
Main Street,
Yeah,
if you're like actually biking to connect to like the plat.
and maybe an extra connection or a safer connection to the plat. Like, I think things like that, where it's like maybe we're taking things like a step further than it needs to go, and it's thinking of how to do it in a more affordable way, where we're not taking space away from something else if it's not necessary. I also am someone who, I don't think the parking in downtown Littleton is as bad as everyone else says it is.
It's, the numbers support you. The public opinion does not. I'm on the exact same boat. We could cut a lot of parking downtown and it would be okay, but
I was about to say, I've never not.
I'm being
I've
recorded,
always
so I
been
shouldn't
wrong.
say that. People
The
don't
worst I've
like
had
it.
is like 2 loops.
Yeah, we're like,
Yeah.
That would be a really bad day.
And I mean, I do think if you add a bunch of apartment buildings, that could change very quickly. You know, if you are replacing Geneva Village with apartments,
Yeah.
that's gonna change rapidly. But right now, there's enough it's restaurants, it's shops, it's in and out.
That's an interest, I mean, I'm just gonna go off of this, so just bear with me. Like, if that did become like apartments, right, I mean, that's kind of sort of like the planning of like, how is this gonna go in? And it's like, well, parking has to go on the other side of, where downtown is to kind of alleviate that congestion. Like, I don't disagree with you, but I think that's just an interesting idea where like, it's not a problem right now, but could it be? Will people continue to have multiple cars? Like, cars are expensive. Maybe you just have one car if you're a Littleton citizen for a whole family.
I think Littleton's in Colorado, and no matter how bad people wanna make Denver and Colorado
We're too spread out.
it's too spread out.
Spread out.
Like, I've gone to the Denver meetings too, and they're trying to make it, everyone takes the light rail, everyone takes the bus, which I love in theory.
Yeah.
But no one's gonna take the bus to Winter Park.
Well, we talked a lot about this last year, right? With the bus adjustment on the one or something, it was not gonna go on Mineral, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't take the bus, so it was hard for me to kind of like fully get behind.
Well, and the transportation system needs some like serious upgrades and safety upgrades and everything before that's even like a real conversation for me, at least. Like, I'm not gonna get on it because I don't feel safe on it right now.
Fair, totally fair.
And I think the flowers and the trees, hugely important. I mean, if you look at studies of how much healthier and happier citizens are in a place where there's more trees, more green, like kids are smarter. They test better, less like it's unbelievable what having greenery around does for a community. And I think that's seriously downplayed. And I know some environmentalists will make the water argument. I think there are options that don't need less water, but I also think from a pollution and air standpoint, you can also argue for trees from an environmental standpoint. So I think
We heard last month is that trees are pretty high up there on the priority list, but like
Good.
they are also shockingly expensive.
They're
Like
so-
I don't have the, exact budget estimates, but I imagine things like some of that street furniture are pretty small line item wise compared to like just getting the trees back into downtown. So there's like that stuff
I
too.
will say that the trees, when they took those trees out, and I know they took them out for good reason, but just like boots on the ground, hearing things, people really, really noticed and really, really missed them. And I think that like has such an impact on making it feel like a cozy community versus just a strip mall.
I also have talked to several business owners and they would be willing to like sponsor the tree in front of their business. I do, I think business owners really felt the loss of the trees. And even last year, I think what they did with the Christmas tree program was really clever and an awesome Band-Aid. But I still like I talked to a lot of people who didn't go to the Christmas event, or they went and they were disappointed because it just doesn't have the same feel when you don't have that height and that feel.
Santa coming down without those trees.
It's different.
Yeah. But again, thanks for engaging in my curiosity question, but I think that's why, like, looking at like the capital finance against Project Downtown is important, because we're all thinking these things, and so it's good for us to provide that insight. Trees are important. You know this, but maybe we need to really like show that from our stance of like why trees are important, right? Because they're long lasting as we take good care of them, and as long as they don't get any infections or anything like that, right? It's it's an investment in it, but it's important because it brings happiness and smarter people and shade. So I think that's important.
We're not really talking about what will be in Project Downtown. I think we're having a conversation around kind of how much money do we want to spend, and then once we have how much do we want to spend, it'll be what can that get us. So the question of just whether to proceed and whether to go into debt is the kind of the key question that we're addressing right now.
But couldn't you work that both ways, where if you work backwards and say, these are our 3 priorities or 5, whatever it is, this is the budget we would need for it, like, doesn't it need to be worked both ways?
Well, in some ways it kind of has, right? We got the original design, and that was, 52 million was the budget. And I think that felt like too much. And so we're kind of like, well, we need to kind of tone that down. And so now I think the conversation is 20 to 27 to $36 million. But you're right. The next part of that conversation is what will it get you? And I think if I'm understanding the process correctly, kind of the next step is to go do a more detailed design so we can have a more firm cost estimate of what the things are.
Yeah. And I think a theme I've seen is like wanting to do, like, touch everything that everybody wants. So doing Band-Aids or small fixes. And I guess my opinion is spend more money on less things that are gonna be more long-term investments, and focusing. That would be my focus, instead of like furniture, for example, like I'd spend more money on trees instead of any furniture.
Things that'll
if that's
impact the next
The
generation.
case, because furniture, that's a small budget item, like you said, comparably, and you could get that in the future somewhere else.
I think that in our last month's meeting, they were starting that conversation a little bit about the phased approach, right? So kind of like looking at like, how much is this gonna cost, and what are like those mission critical things that need to be taken care of? And do those make sense, and then timeline against it? Cause I think that's the other big thing, and I think it was said too, is like, if you touch infrastructure, you're touching everything. So I'll be curious to kind of see how that unfolds too.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to consider is I have the slide pulled up from the presentation. That's basically listing out all the different needs, project type, outcome, potential funding tools, whatever. The open question at the end of that is like what the priority is. And so there's Kettering and Gallup Park improvements, Project Downtown, Littleton Center, Bemis Library, ADA improvements, pedestrian underpasses, sidewalk replacements, TMP, transportation mobility, plan identified projects, facility maintenance, and like Geneva Village. So these are all projects that involve some form of like debt service, and like that is a limited capacity and like a scarce resource. So like that's the context that all this stuff like lives in too, is more we spend in some of these areas, the more we let like budget kind of run away. In some of these areas, less on some of the others. So I think that's another potential place to like weigh in of, hey, how much do we think core components of Project Downtown and moving forward with some of those things, especially some of like the future phases are, where would we put that in some of this like priority list? And
I also think when you're thinking of the priorities, like, and I'm not I don't know how all this stuff works totally, but I would imagine that if you invest in Project Downtown and invest in the businesses, they're like, that's the area that's making the money for the city. So it makes more sense to focus on areas where the city's getting something back from it. So that debt isn't as,
yeah, it's not directly the areas that like make the most money for the city. It actually can be like tricky in that regard. It's actually a lot of the big sales tax areas, the Home Depot, the Lowe's, some of the hotels.
the Costco.
Are they doing any affordable housing above the Costco?
There is we did approve a waiver to build like 380 apartments over there, and whatever our affordable housing mandate there, you have to put in 5% of, so there'll be 5% in that apartment complex that gets built. So, that's another conversation we're having, is whether what's the name of our affordable housing thing,
South Metro housing?
The
Inclusionary housing ordinance, thank you. That's our law. So we're having a conversation about whether 5% is too low, and whether we should make it higher for future development, or raise the kind of fee in lieu we ask people to pay. Because we really are kind of using the money, this fee in lieu, where developers will pay us money instead of doing the 5%. That's really our housing fund right now. And so we are using that to help South Metro Housing do things. And we're also considering using it to support kind of maintaining existing affordable housing, like what we did with Meadowwood, the trailer park. I think they're going to ask us for a little bit of more money out of that pile. So, but that pile of money right now is $5-10 million, which in the housing picture is not a lot of money. I probably told you more than you were asking.
That is helpful.
When I think of our board, I think very long-sighted, right? We've got downtown, a place that we all love, and we all have these incredible ideas of how we can shape it. But I think one of the ways that my mind starts going is the finance piece of it, because any sort of debt that we take on is going to be repaid by us over the next, X number of years, and that repayment will limit what things we can do down the road. And so, from a more like, just trying to keep that as, I don't know, I'm interested in understanding that more deeply, because I think that you use the word invest. I think that absolutely we should be investing in our city, whether that's downtown, parks, wherever. Investing is going to keep our city good. But how much do we do it, and at what terms are we going to be seeking out? Because yeah, it's going to be on our shoulders as sort of the next generation, and then whatever the next generation below us, depending on how long this debt goes and what options that they have into the future too. So I think it's fun to dream about what we could do, and that's sort of what the debt enables. But honestly, a little nervous about us as a city taking on great amounts of debt, especially depending on what the terms are. So.
I agree. I think it's just as much as what we could do and what we shouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I like what you said there, Michael, because it made me think about what Bobby had pointed out earlier with the slide you had mentioned of kind of all the different connections. And I wonder if, as we kind of look towards like, what type of advisement do we really want to like offer on this, right? Like, trees for sure, but, you know, more specifically, like, maybe that's where we need to look at that list against like, you know, what does that look like? And as the next generation, talk about where we see that money as being a real investment. And then that's the type of advisement we can offer to city council and say, this is how we think project downtown should kind of look as we're thinking about this. About where it's healthy debt versus where maybe it's too risky debt, like you're saying, right? Because maybe that's something that doesn't get paid back for 50+ years, and that's really risky. So,
Most are, you know, 20 to 30 year repayments on a lot of those bonds and things, so
yeah,
not quite that extent, but like, yeah, that's a long time. We'll be
That's,
older residents by the
I was
time.
about to say, that's probably the course of our careers,
Yeah.
so.
But on the other hand, like debt is, it is my understanding of Littleton finances is that we do very little with debt service currently, and that's actually a pretty major barrier to being able to like get caught up on some of these projects and programs and like state of some infrastructure like disrepair in the city. So while that obviously does come with risk, it's also like when you take out a loan to do the siding on your house or whatever, it allows you to actually like do that thing, which is critical to like keeping your house standing. And so
They'll help you
there's-
make more on resale. You gotta spend money to make money.
and there's obviously a way to do that responsibly or irresponsibly, but from what I heard in that presentation, I seems like city staff is fairly fiscally responsible and has a pretty like solid plan. And I'll say that maybe like taps out on my limits of like what I would maybe want to start like advising on, because like I don't feel I feel well qualified in adding advice on how we think things should be managed or maybe some key prioritization areas or other stuff like that. I don't feel like even with another month of in-depth research under my belt that I'm gonna make good recommendations on like what an appropriate debt level is for like our city working. Like that's, I'm happy to leave that to the people where it's their full-time job, because it's not mine.
Another thing that we're considering is kind of monitoring or imitating what the school district does. So LPS kind of has a kind of constant debt load, and every 10 years, they kind of issue a new set of bonds, and they've kind of set it up so that they can issue new bonds and not raise property taxes if they don't want to. And so so in the big picture, we're kind of thinking about, can we begin a cycle of debt where you kind of maintain a constant level and then every decade so kind of do another big investment period. And that's part of the conversation we're having is that something we want to aim towards? So that's just part of the conversation as well.
it's an idea.
I guess along these lines, like, where do you value assets like Geneva Village in that? I'm curious what people's thoughts are on like short-term versus long-term benefits of what the different options they're looking at for Geneva Village. And if like you do see the asset as being something important for us as citizens in the future to balance this debt.
Yeah, but I think assets are important, but when an asset is doing nothing for you, it is a little bit of like just, it's a little counterproductive when that space could be being more productive. So that is certainly like a city asset, and I appreciate the like perspective around recognizing the impact that would be selling that or entering into a partnership with like a private entity, but like it is currently nothing.
But what would you do to make it a productive asset?
I mean, any form of development on there, so anything that turns it, and right, again, I have personal opinions on like what I would like to see that space do, but anything that turns it into a resource for residents or potential residents of Littleton to live in, enjoy, benefit from anyway, anything that brings sales tax or property tax are all things that give the city more stuff to work with and residents more opportunity to like engage with.
Do you think there's more value though in selling or investing in it?
if we maintain ownership over it, it certainly limits what we can get back from a like recurring standpoint in terms of some of those sales tax and funding opportunities through LDDA. And Jen, whether, and it's actually one of my like key questions on this is like, I would love to know more from city staff perspective, like what the excitement and feeling of competence and like ability to essentially like absorb that as a project that they would actually like own rather than pair and partner with a developer on. I have this all the time at work where people are like, we wanna give this research or statistical analyses to like our external consultants, but we wanna like double check, do you wanna do it first? And it's like, I would love to. But I can't, like, I won't have the bandwidth. Or it's a like outside expertise, so there is a big part in that where if council and city staff wants to have that be a high priority and a heavily involved thing, and they think they have the ability to like go for it, then I think that has potential. Exciting, meaningful, and like a highly motivating piece. It also has the potential to be like scope creep to the extreme, and that really limits like what could get done in that.
Agree.
I think some sort of partnership, I don't think fully selling it also without some level of control is wise, but I think some form of partnership, government partnership,
Well, I think,
is a good move there.
I think what are we calling it, the bungalow or the big building?
The lodge.
The lodge, the history of that and how it was renovated is sort of a story of how the city was able to retain ownership, but still make strides and making sure that it didn't just fall apart. Having the architecture firm come in, do it, they got it for what, 20 or 25 years and then got back. Cause I think that a big part of the conversation of a conversation with debt is also a conversation with assets. Because if we're sort of the board that is thinking 30 or 50 years down the line, you know, the value of the US dollar ebbs and flows. The land in downtown Littleton is, there's no more of that getting made. And so like, I think that, you know, the debt and the asset conversation are both very important because we need to balance those correctly for the long term. I think that an asset not used is disappointing, but in the world of even just like personal investing, sometimes you have assets that you aren't using for a rainy day, for a future that we can't quite reach out to right now. And so what I would hate to see happen with either debt or with assets is that we make decisions that feel good in the short run, but then inhibiting future residents of Littleton down the line.
Totally agree with
totally
that.
So a very pie in the sky, we're at 100,000-foot view in this conversation right now, but like,
I think that's
That's sort
kind
of
of
the
the
vision that I'm-
start is like, is it an investment opportunity for downtown Littleton or a partnership opportunity or like it's no longer in our hands. And I also think from the asset point of view, we're all in Littleton because of the assets that it has, because of Main Street, because of the parks, because of the trail system. So like looking at it from a value, that kind of value standpoint too. And then the talk about like the type of development, there's what's there now, you can like take back green space, redo. But if you put a bunch of apartment buildings on all of that land and all that park space, and you wanna make a change in the future, or population decreases in the future, or those buildings are no longer in style, or whatever it might be, that's a really hard thing to come back from. So thinking of like, what type of development can grow with the city and continue to be like, again, that long-term asset, because I do think we think so short-term and we're like, okay, people need houses, like, let's pop these up. But we talk to inspectors and they're like, these houses aren't gonna be houses in 30 years, you know, like, people aren't gonna be wanting to live here, and I think preventing Littleton from continuing to have this conversation 30 years from now in 60 years from now? I don't know. Cause I totally agree with both of you and what you said.
Where do we think, based on like where we're floating ideas right now, like where do we think we can start? Not getting into specific recommendations, things like that, but like where do we think we could actually make actionable steps here? And I'll start with like example on that. I think one is if there are key prioritization pieces, even if it's early on in the process. So if there are key things of, hey, we don't want to see it turn into this, we would like to see it turn into something generally in this ballpark. I think that's one option. I think also, given the steps, one of the things that I really liked about I know we're kind of moving into the next agenda item, but they're all blurred together, so we're gonna roll, is like one of the things I really liked in that Geneva Village presentation was the idea of like having key champions, like working on this and starting to like kind of build the stakeholders, build the teams, and start mapping out detailed plans from there. So I think that's like more of like where the current work actually is, and if there are kind of key recommendations we want to give it, how we would like to see that planning process move, how we would like to see the people who are going to be the actual decision makers on this, because we aren't, no matter how strong our opinions are. Advice on like kind of how we want to see them approach it as a problem, key resources they're leaning into, key things that they should keep considering as they actually do like the detailed problem. So those are my two thoughts on like, if there's anywhere to actually like, for us to provide recommendations out at this point. It's some of those things, but I think there are other too, I mean, to see what you all think of like, if we want to provide recommendation here, and if so, kind of how to best do that at this point.
I like the idea of boundaries and priorities. These are
Those words, I love those,
things
yeah.
we don't want to see. Cause I mean, you look at like Project Downtown and I agree, like I saw the original 3 options and all of them, I was like, there are definitely things that I think would really benefit Littleton in these, but a lot of them, it's just like, it's just not necessary. It's when there's so many other places that need, everything costs money.
Unfortunately true.
I think one of my biggest things for that area is I don't wanna see high rises. Like, I think no matter whether it ends up being a space for tourism and a community space, or whether it ends up being affordable housing, I don't think there's any world where long-term high rises are gonna be a good option just because of the way I know investors and development work. Cause if we do high rises, I would imagine it'd be a partnership. And I just don't think that's gonna benefit Littleton long-term.
So how do you define high rise? Cause they're,
I think honestly, like anything over 2 stories there would be a huge bummer. And just the way things are being, to be affordable housing, to stay in the budget and with all the red tape around it, like I just met with a developer right before I got here and I know it's different in Littleton and Denver, but they were required to do a certain amount of affordable housing on a project and the permit went from $5,000 to $50,000 in Denver. And they're not absorbing that cost. It's going on to the people buying the houses. And so I'm just like, there's a bigger conversation there and affordable houses aren't always built to stand the test of time, especially when they're in like a high-rise situation. So I'd love to see those bungalows maintained. 2 stories would be my cap.
I think it's a gateway to historic downtown Littleton. And I think there is a certain character that maybe should come with, like, that's our whole sale, that's our whole spiel, like historic downtown Littleton. And so having the feel of the gateway that most people are getting there on feel completely separate, I think is a disservice to the character that we've all bought into, invested in.
You know, the city's worked so hard to maintain over the decades.
I appreciate you transitioning the conversation to, what do we do? What do we want to do with this? Robert, maybe you can help us with like timeline, like for the council right now. What is gonna be happening sooner? Is it gonna be the Geneva Village conversation? Is it gonna be the debt conversation, the town?
Well, I don't know, I don't know what the pace of the conversation is gonna be around the, Geneva Village. I think there's definitely, it's gonna take a long time, but we were a mess and I was part of the mess of like, well, what about this? What about that? And like, no, there's no, I think, it felt like the ULI people were encouraging us as a next step to put out an RFQ or an RFI to kind of see what developers would be interested in doing with probably just the 2.8 acres that is the Geneva Village. And, there's no appetite for tearing down the lodge, but I have an appetite for tearing down the empty apartments. So it would be with that, starting with that space and seeing what people could. But we haven't even agreed on kind of whether we want an RFI on what you would do with that 2.8 acres or what you would do with this whole campus on this side. So I don't see us making any fast decisions on that. The project downtown, I think we have essentially agreed to consider having it, we've asked the staff to figure out exactly what a debt, what decision we'd have to make for a debt. So bring back to us a more firm, this is what we would issue, and this much would go towards design, and then we would have this much for the, so I think both of those things are probably not gonna happen for a couple of months. I think it's, so, I'm sorry, I don't have a really good, that was a long way of saying, I don't have a good answer for your question, so I apologize for just kind of wandering around.
No, I think that's not to say that works perfectly for my like personal bias on this, but that's to say that if we're making recommendations here, I think we should think about framing them of things that like we're not in the acute planning stage of these things, so we should focus on major high level design considerations, boundaries, priorities, that we can put a stamp on and say, hey, we don't think these are gonna change a year or two down the road, even as like actual plans or changes to the budget of these things or changes to those things start to come together. It's kind of evergreen type recommendations and not get too bogged down in specific details or plans. Or we should recognize that we're very much in the like planning type stage of these things and give input on like how we think the people involved in those things and at the ongoing council discussions and stuff on them, how we think how the planning should kind of happen, or any like key considerations on that. Not again, specifically saying, hey, you should involve all these specific people and we know best and whatever, but of like, hey, make sure someone from LDDA is there. That's like a super obvious one, stuff like that. But of we would like you to be considering the environmental impact on the park and watershed near there. We don't have specific recommendations on how to develop that, but like we think that's something that should be considered a priority area to include. So long-term stuff that we think is gonna stay fixed long-term or short-term stuff on like how that planning process should continue to merge. And part of that, as we did with like waste diversion, could be us saying, we really wanna make sure we get looped in and have somebody come present in 6 months, 12 months, whatever it might be, as the actual like planning on these things starts to become more tangible. I think those are how we could like turn these to more actionable recommendations if we funnel efforts into those lenses.
I agree, but I think it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing again, where it's hard to like recommend who we want involved in the planning process until we know, the direct, like if it is gonna be like high-rise affordable housing, I think that's like a really different process and it brings up a lot of different concerns like parking and all that stuff versus like if, I don't know, it's something.
For these two projects, could we, if we're going down the road of wanting to voice our opinions, should we be more visionary instead of more specific? Like, hey, we're going to be the ones living with this long term. here's what we think.
Do you guys want me to send you the report that ULI provided and then you could comment on that report? That
I
makes
think,
sense?
yeah, that'd be
See that.
helpful.
For sure,
Yeah,
we'd
right.
like to do that.
I think that's helpful, because I think too, what I've been hearing is that these are all unprofessional for us to do as an advisory board. So I think we be kind of high level visionary, thinking about what's the environmental impact, like, 5 years, 20 years down the road. And then, also include, some of those maybe more specific of like, you really should, as you move forward, this is a specific consideration. So kind of treat it as such, right? Start at that kind of like high level and kind of hone in on maybe a few things, right? Because we can't do it all. But I think if we at least kind of say like, these are things that are important for us, based on the findings from the report, are thinking these are the kind of top commitments we would encourage you to consider. This is why, and then dive into, some of the specifics around that. I think that gives a lot of guidance and an insight as to what we're thinking. So when the city council looks at that and reads it, they say, oh, okay, we didn't look at it from this perspective, or like Bobby said, we really should include this group or partner, as we go through it, right? We aren't going to change the world. This may get thrown in the trash, but the idea is that we at least have provided what we think is advisable for the next generation. We can put our stamp on that.
I like that. And I like what Bobby said about like evergreen
Yeah.
things that like these are gonna matter no matter what, like these are our priorities no matter what, and these are the things where we just like they aren't our priorities, so please reconsider before, like, think twice before you spend money on them.
Yeah, and I think that gives a lot of, insight at multiple levels that we find important. I just need to see that report.
Okay, I sent it to you
Thank you, sir.
on your city email.
Yeah, I should have sent that out with the link to the study session. I don't know, I didn't get to do that, so now we have it.
Link.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we'll do then is between now and our next meeting, let's all kind of jot down some thoughts, bring our commentary, and then we can last time and start to some sort of recommendation together. I think that can be pretty powerful.
Should the goal be that we have a recommendation at the end of next meeting?
It's tangible.
Yeah.
One thing I'll advocate for on this that I'm gonna throw as a suggestion, not a like requirement, is obviously, yeah, we should all read through that report and we can use that as a good scaffolding of like essentially providing commentary on that report is a great way to like frame a lot of our thoughts in that. If there are special interests that any of you all have that you want to take as like an area to do a little bit of an independent research on, not full expertise or whatever, but like extra bonus perspective that then we can like loop back in. That'd be great. So I'm gonna spend some more time looking into kind of overall debt servicing and financing done at a city level and how something like an asset like Geneva Village and that kind of private public partnership plays into our ability to like kind of do debt and sort of stuff there. So that's something I can commit to like circling back on. If anybody else has like other perspectives that they kind of want to be a little subject matter expert on, coming back next time, I think that can help our perspectives and just keep people accountable to looking into additional stuff.
Yeah, I like that approach. It kind of like the idea of fighting and leveraging interests. And I'd say for those of us who are here now, don't maybe feel fully tied to it. Just shoot me an email and this is it. This is what I want to like really plant my flag in, and then I'll kind of share that. That way we don't have duplicate efforts. I think that would be a good way to do that and make sure that we keep moving forward with it. Cool. All right, really good discussion there. So yeah, we'll follow up with that too. Okay, let's move on to our last item of the NGAB Engagement Outreach Survey. So this came up in a conversation about trying to, kind of get our name out a little more, not necessarily to do anything specific, but to just kind of get the awareness, right? We kind of represent the next generation. So it's something that we kind of think is an opportunity for us to hear from, and I think, Bobby, you and I were talking about this, a while ago about just like having different places, like resources where people can kind of find us, so they can share, where they're feeling and kind of things that they maybe are like, well, what do you focus on? Or, have you guys focus more on this? I don't know if you had other thoughts or additional comments around that, kind of at that high level.
Basically, just as I've been trying to like make some additional contacts with different groups on behalf of the board and scope out whether groups are interested in kind of having some form of partnership, whether that's just sharing information, having them come present every once in a while, sending them a quarterly or semi-annual agenda for our priority, stuff like that. Common point back has been like, should I just email you my ideas? Do you guys have like a feedback form, a comment form, like somewhere where those people directly, as well as like, kind of members of their groups or stuff could submit like information of just like, oh, hey, had this thought, hey, observing this thing, hey, not. I think Littleton should focus on this, or management board should focus on this thing, or anything like that.
I think the example you had talked about was like the Transportation Mobility Board, right? Of like, their conversations, like, oh, this is great. Opportunity to talk about like with NGAB. So it would be probably different from how we structured it last year, right? Where we're like, look at all the events and take our survey. And I would imagine it seems like it's more of like a simple form of like, we have this discussion, and I want you all to weigh in. Because I think that's kind of been something we've been doing a little bit, is having some of those like kind of board partnerships, so we're not duplicating efforts and we're just kind of strengthening by numbers. Am I summarizing that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. It really is just, more, I mean, like, cause right now I basically have just been telling people to email me if they think of things of interest or like things they want to know about, or things they would be, opinions they would like kind of like circulated or brought up, or things like that. And that's fine, but it's almost not the most like scalable option and not the most like professional.
Are many people followed up?
Yeah, that's my question.
Well, I've gotten, so yeah, like both of I've got a few people in my neighborhood that are in our age demographic, and some of them, one guy was like, hey, where can I send some input around like how I think bike lanes should be prioritized in the city and stuff like that, and sent him like the transportation master survey and just like kind of some direction in like the city website. But he's like, I think this should be a bigger priority for like you guys on next gen. And I was like, cool. But like, there's nowhere where you could have told us that unless he's gonna come to public comment, which he's probably not. And then Donald, a guy who runs this group, Littleton Young Professionals, I was gonna go to one of his events and he was very much asking for that of like, hey, I want to distribute out to members before you're here so that we can like give an intro to you, and if people have feedback for you, your board, questions, just things like that. So just envisioning like a just really like a touch point type thing. But if that's, yeah, I think that would be a valuable thing. I don't expect it to be like a high use thing. I don't expect it to be
Like a landing page?
just a way for somebody to,
Form link
Okay.
to send out.
just a way for people to, if they have an idea, they don't have to just hold on to that.
This is something that all of our boards could benefit from.
Mind. I was wondering if we make it, maybe pitch the
Little
idea,
drop-down.
like choose to board and then provide that feedback. That'd probably be more work with our city staff, but I think that could be, Chris is smiling a little bit. But I think that could be an interesting idea, right? So that way, instead of, one of us managing, if anyone ever fills it out, right? And then we all turn over at some point. So I wonder if that maybe is more of a opportunity for us to work with you all for the feedback form for all boards.
I guess the only thing I wanna say about like the current survey is it is like a well-designed survey. I like the vibe of it. It went up to my survey like research days. My immediate thought was like, there's, not to speculate at what happened on the board last year, there's no way you got enough traffic and traction on this, and there's no way like City of Littleton traction on this would be high enough to do a level of like interesting analysis that like cuts across these questions in meaningful ways. So I think just something, if we want to do something really targeted as a survey like this, that's fine, but it should be like super clear vision and with like a very targeted end goal and analysis. Otherwise, something that's more of a general feedback form, just to empower people to have ideas, is more the direction that like I lean towards being valuable. I just don't think a lot of people have touch points with the city that they feel are actually like strong. I think people who know and feel confident at city council meetings use that, and that's great. That tends to not be our demographic. And I think people tend to think that things they send into the city in general tend to be lumped in with a bunch of complaints and other things that go in. And every time I've explained what our board is and the fact that boards are kind of volunteer-based and resident-based, people are like, that's where I would like my opinion to go. So you all can discuss it as part of your agendas and figure out how to elevate that and empower that voice if we worthy.
I mean, do you think though, if we just had a landing page, like if it weren't like you sending a direct link to somebody you know, is it gonna be anything anyone goes and finds? What do we think?
Maybe not.
So then maybe it is just like a Google form that we have a link to or a QR code to, and if when we talk to people, we can send it and then we share it with, it's kind of one of those things that continues to be shared, but maybe it doesn't have to be anything more than that, 'cause I think you're right that people don't, like, once it becomes more than that, people kind of think it's BS. And it's that personal aspect you have with those people and them knowing you, where they're like, he will elevate this. So if you're sending like a direct link and say, hey, we look at this Google form, then people might actually do it. Cause I think once it does become like something every board is doing, cause I look like every time we have a presenter, they're like, look at my Instagram. I'm like, how many Littleton Instagrams are there with like a different Littleton logo and a different website? It's like I think it's so confusing for people. So I think it's that personal aspect that does get people.
Yeah.
Maybe like, I think it's a good idea to have somewhere for people to like actually share thoughts, and that is, our goal is to like represent the service of people. But maybe it is nothing more than just like a easy Google survey or something.
I think it's a great idea. I will play devil's advocate a little bit here in that I think the only thing we would have to be cognizant of is some sort of data governance with that, right? Because then it's almost a free for all type of survey, even though it's not sharing anything that's overly sensitive. It's just people providing their input. But I think that's where, like, if we channel it through the city, then it kind of locks it down a little bit instead of us having that ultimate control. Whereas, if a form comes in, maybe it goes to Chris, and Chris has to, share that with us, and that's a conversation point. But I think it's a great idea. I love the idea, like, not everyone feels comfortable to come and speak. People have lives in the evening that prevent them from attending this meeting for public comment, so it's worth to get the feedback.
Should we talk to somebody from the city about this?
Absolutely, I will take that on and have some conversations.
Just like how this fits into general communication plan, cause I also don't wanna overstep and start circulating stuff out there that like steps on city touch point and stuff in general, or maybe there is some tool or area or email that I should be sending people to that would be like more appropriate to this, and maybe it's just about us being able to like tap into that a little bit more too, rather than something we need to do directly.
I think if we're getting like thousands of replies, maybe that's a step we need to take, but I bet we get max 50 and it's more opinions than we have here, and at least get like, I think that's like, you can level it up if it needs to be leveled up, but it might be more simple than that. 'Cause sometimes I think that's the problem with government, is everything's way more complicated than just like making it happen. So nothing ever gets done. It's my 2 cents. But I don't know the whole process, so I don't know what's legal or not. I just know that I think it's annoying how many like boxes you always need to check to get something really simple done.
And I think the only other committee I'm on is the Transportation Mobility Board, and they definitely are gearing up to get public input for the updated plan. So I don't think you guys are discussing is that different from at least the one other one participating is discussing.
When people, and maybe nobody in this room knows that, but like the QR codes on poster boards in like parks where it's like, we're thinking of doing this, like they were in Kettering.
Yeah.
How much response actually?
Yeah, I don't know, cause I mean, as a city, I think we're trying to get more, structured in our kind of outreach and how we do those, and because some of them I think were actually done by consultant, and then some of them were done by us. So I think we're trying to get a more unified kind of how we do that kind of work. But you know, I think hundreds of survey responses is a lot, 1 or 200 is a lot.
I do too.
For us. You know, and by the way, you should all go do the Abadi online study thing and put your input into that. You're welcome for that unasked for. So, but that's an opportunity for you guys to put in Abadi Street. And they're trying, that's kind of a new kind of thing too, is where if you can kind of do your self-paced look through the plan and provide feedback.
Did my part.
I feel like the last two questions I've just rambled and not answered, so I apologize.
All right. So with that, comments from staff?
Brief comment for you. TMB would like to let you guys know that the LPS superintendent is going to be at their upcoming meeting, not upcoming, but their November 20th meeting. So they said you're welcome to attend if that's something that interests you. That's the only piece of information I have for you. Other than that, no other comments.
All right, great. Is anyone interested in attending that?
Check my calendar. I think somebody.
Be a massive.
Yeah, November 20th, you said?
Yeah, November 20th.
All right, cool. We'll make sure that we have a representative there.
Yeah, I guess we can discuss that at our November meeting, but.
We had a
tentatively, we
design
can go to that.
Okay.
That's an interesting touch point, so.
All right, cool. We'll make sure that we have a rep for that, and might be Bobby. Since we've still got no on it.
Anybody else wants to join? It doesn't have to just be me.
All right, sure.
Oh, nothing. I've talked too much already. You guys doing great.
All right, any comments from the board?
This month, happy fall.
Yeah, happy fall.
Happy pumpkin spice season.
That's right. All right, we'll adjourn this meeting.